right, let's stay with Congress and a man who presumably would have cruised to another victory in Michigan's 10th congressional district, but Paul Mitchell had enough and decided 2 terms was plenty. Let's talk to him as he winds down his tenure with his thoughts on what's wrong in Washington. Congressman, I'm glad we're coming to you right after Alyssa Slotkin. She mentioned that you were a part of the Problem Solvers Caucus, but you actually have given up your membership in that group over their support for this coronavirus relief package.
Yeah, the problem solvers are going through a number of packages they'd worked on, and what was abundantly clear to me is a big part of particularly the Democrats on the group, were focused on aid to local and state governments. The proposal they put out has 1/3 of the money going to aid state and local governments. That's not our big problem. Our big problem are the people that are trying to go to work that don't have jobs or are laid off. The worker at a restaurant that's working 1 shift a week on carryout and just can't pay their bills.
Yeah.
Businesses that are going bankrupt. We need to help those folks. That's the mainstay of our economy. But some folks are interested in bolstering their local government budgets, and frankly, it creates a federal revenue sharing type program, and I'm fundamentally opposed to that. So I withdrew. I don't support this package. I think there are better ways to do what we need to do.
But because, as I mentioned, because of the makeup of this caucus, it was, of course, bipartisan, both sides getting a little of what they wanted and not all of what they wanted. So the irony here is that one of the reasons you're frustrated with Washington is the inability to compromise on things. Aren't you here giving up on a compromise on something that now, the things that you're talking about, I'm not sure you get a whole lot of Democrats to support the change?
Well, I think things that like for example, additional checks out to families that were done in the first CARES package for COVID.
Yep.
Extended unemployment compensation. All those things are important things to both sides of the aisle. And rather than take part of the loaf, rather than take what we can all actually agree on, it's like trying to go some version of the full loaf. And as we talked about, I'm skeptical that anything will pass because of that. More than willing to compromise, but I think people have principles. One of the principles I had is I ran, and I believe in government is depend on, I think we should have small government. We shouldn't have government that is costing the taxpayers, individuals that pay the bills, huge amounts of money. In Michigan, we have state workers that don't go to the office, aren't really providing services, they've been home for extended periods of time, yet Governor Whitmer wants to preserve their jobs forever, apparently. They aren't adjusting the size of the government.
But is a pandemic maybe not the best time to talk about a smaller government? I mean, everybody is relying on government help right now, and there's a fair amount of, for lack of a better word, socialism happening.
Well, I think it's always an appropriate time to talk about what the size of government should be, what the role should be. And yes, even under a pandemic, it's appropriate to ask that question. There's an awful lot of what in that package I support. I just don't support putting out 1/3 of the total amount of money that they're proposing being for underwriting state and local government. 1/3 of the money, Devin.
It is. You've voiced a number of your frustrations as to why you've decided to leave Washington, but I wanted to talk to you about some of the prescriptives for it. You've had, I think, on the one hand, you've been frustrated with the inability to get things done because we have 2 parties that don't talk to each other very much, but you're also frustrated with what's become of the Republican Party, I believe.
Well, and I've had conversations with a variety of national Republicans who have the same question, which is what's become of our Republican Party? We just talked about it earlier. We've been the party of small government, limited government, of government that we can afford, in fact, of helping people with their needs, helping them with opportunity to get forward for themselves and their families, of addressing inequality, all those things for a long period of time. Unfortunately, the party has evolved lately to a place of grievance, complaint, accusations. Not a place that welcomes some discussion of what a policy solution is, but there's been way too much name calling. There's a level of frustration I have about all you and I've talked about it that's massive. I just don't see it as a way of solving problems in the country. You can't get someone to work with you when you start out by calling them names. I checked, it doesn't work well.
Well, what is, as you're leaving office, what's your prescriptive? How do we solve that? Or if it was simple to solve, I suppose you'd be staying.
Well, no, I think there is a solution, but it takes effort on the part of all Americans. The question, I guess, Devin, is are we tired of hearing people talk about the same thing for extended periods of time? For example, immigration reform, fixing immigration problems, but nothing happening on it. They'll talk about it. They'll use it to raise money. They'll use it for re-election, but nothing done. We need to hold elected officials say, what did you do about the problem? Don't tell me we're going to talk about the problem.
I think you felt that you were very, very close to getting an immigration deal done.
Yes, we're very close. And unfortunately, as I told you, I think the priorities in D.C. are screwed up. The first priority is to find issues and means by which to raise money to get reelected. The second priority is to raise money for the congressional committee, for the leadership PACs, to help other members get reelected so you can move up the power structure. At best, fourth on the list, maybe fifth, is actually addressing issues of Americans, but only if it doesn't adversely impact the first three. You either get a clear win because any compromise you're viewed as, well, as a rhino, as a whatever you want to call it, and compromise is a four-letter word. So nothing gets accomplished. Immigration is one example. Healthcare is another example. We can go through the list of major issues we face in this country that compromise has become impossible because the fringes of the Republican and Democratic Party have taken them over. Social media, the clickbait, has allowed them to run roughshod over rational thought and policy.
As an American voter, you've listed me as the fourth priority in Washington right now, which is a sobering thought. The last thing I wanted to quickly get to, though, Congressman, you are basically voting by proxy now because of your own health concerns regarding COVID.
Yes, I filed yesterday a letter with the clerk of the House to vote by proxy. That is to give direction to another member to vote on my behalf. To be honest, I selected a Democrat to do that, a friend to the problem solvers. I didn't ask another Republican to do that because they take a fair amount of abuse from Republican leadership. My doctor, I've had severe asthma since I was a child. My wife has asthma, implored me to not travel to D.C. after Thanksgiving, to not go back there. I'm going to follow his wishes because I don't wish to endanger my family's health to go back and vote on things. Today's vote was on legalizing marijuana. I didn't vote by proxy. I will vote by proxy to pass the National Defense Authorization Act, which the president, by the way, has threatened to veto because it isn't doing something specific. He wants something underrelated, which is about media protections, liability protections. It doesn't belong here. If he does veto it, I will vote to override the president's veto as well, because frankly, I am tired of people not focusing on the issue we're dealing with and throwing last-minute demands and thinking they're going to get someone to do exactly what they want. That includes the president.
Which is why you won't be returning to Congress in January. But you've always been available to us here on Flashpoint. I've so appreciated it. Stay safe and have a very Merry Christmas.
You too, Devin. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Yep, thanks. Back with Garland Gilchrist, Lieutenant Governor of Michigan, after this.